Nevergrave is an interesting Metroidvania roguelike. It looks like anime Hollow Knight with a Dead Cells-like premise and base building that gives you stat buffs like the recent Rune Factory. It's an amusing mix of a lot of games, but just because a game takes inspiration from various other games doesn't mean it'll provide a well-executed experience. So does it utilize its unique blend of game mechanics well? Let's talk about it. You start off with a very minimal story. It seems as if you were being experimented on by this ominous witch-looking figure. Something goes wrong, boom, you were thrown out of the tower and into the depths below. It's not clear at the beginning whether you're the girl or if you were the hat, or if your soul was transferred to the hat and now you can possess things. It doesn't really tell you that outright at the start, and we're not keen on spoiling. Also, it bears some similarity to Dead Cells with the disposable body kind of vibe. People familiar with the genre would most likely spot the similarity pretty fast. Again, very minimal story, but what we do know is that you're thrown into the ruins below, you encounter a boss, it's too strong for you, and you die. You are then revived outside of said ruins in what seems to be a church. You learn that the church is the only thing standing after the village around it was attacked. You then take up the mantle of rebuilding the town, all the while delving into the dungeons to find out what happened. Again, there's not a lot of story to parse early in the game, and honestly you could even say that the story is hard to follow because by the time you get through the first area, the ruins, you probably already forgot the intro of the game. If you're playing this game for the story, you're not really gonna get much of it, because the main draw of the game is the Metroidvania roguelike dungeons, and the fact that going through those takes a while, and that progressing means going through them over and over, the pacing of the story kinda stops to a crawl. Gameplay is the focus here, and it offers a good mix of different gameplay mechanics. There are two main parts of the game, the action bits and the downtime in the village. The action bits are pretty much your usual Metroidvania with the 2D side-scroller action, the labyrinthian maps, checkpoints, etc. But with a roguelike twist where the rewards, loot, and boons you find along the way are randomized, along with getting sent right back to a hub area / town when you die. Then a good amount of your progress is reset when you're sent back. Of course, except for the meta progression, and we'll get to that later when we discuss the town. One of the more unique aspects of the action portion of the game is possession. Like we mentioned earlier, you play as the Hat and you have the power of possession. While you can't possess everything, there are specific monsters you can possess once you've defeated them in battle. Possession is useful in two ways. One is that the monsters that you can possess have varying attack patterns and ranges. The dinosaur-looking thing with the lance has crazy reach, for example. The second is that they act like a second life or an expansion of your own main health bar, because when you die while possessing a monster, you just return to your hat form, and you can repossess your main body with your HP bar untouched. So you can use this to prolong your endurance in fights, or use the possessed body to explore the map, preserving the main body's resources like HP, potions, MP, and tool count. It's great because while the Dead Cells inspiration is obvious, this is a way it runs with that inspiration and does something unique with it. Regular battle gameplay, however, is a little lackluster. It's very standard and maybe even lacking by other Metroidvania standards. It's not as dynamic as the likes of Hollow Knight, not as punishing as the likes of Blasphemous, not as equipment diverse as Bloodstained, nor is it as atmospheric as Animal Well. It's very bog standard. Now that's not to say that it's a bad game, it's just missing a little bit of that standout wow factor, at least when it comes to the battle portion of the game. There are some really game-changing and wow factor perks in the legendary rarity tier, but it doesn't really feel like the lesser perks make that much of a difference to the gameplay. Again, much like the Metroidvania aspect, it feels average and lacking that, oomph. But it does have the basics down. While the game does feel average and non-stand out in some of its parts, it does have its unique moments, and one of those is base building. It's so surprising that anyone I talk to about this game would stare at me like I said something absurd and they just reply, "Base building? In a Metroidvania?" We mentioned a while ago that the town right outside the church where you respawn was destroyed. Well, this serves as your blank canvas where you can rebuild the town. Now, there might be some people who will be more interested in the battle portions of the game who may be thinking, I'll just ignore that. To that, I say, 1. What are you doing here? If you don't want to build, this isn't the game for you. And 2. The game does incentivize you to build. It's through the facilities that you build in the town that you can access the game's meta progression. In the village, there is a research station where you can spend money to research various things, such as materials for building, facilities, as well as spells and tools that you can use in the dungeon. Some facilities allow you to access skill trees, which comprise part of your meta progression. You use up materials that you find in the dungeons to upgrade your damage, your healing, or your defenses, etc. You build in a Terraria Starbound type fashion, and like the recent Rune Factory, you also get stat boosts depending on how much you've built in the village. In the village, you can also have things like pots, where you can synthesize advanced materials from more basic materials you just picked off defeated enemies, as well as cooking food. Speaking of food, you can also grow crops and raise animals, which will give you basic food materials that you can put into the pots to make more complex dishes. These dishes, when consumed at a dinner table, will give you certain buffs that will be useful for your next journey into the dungeons. So building and rebuilding isn't just for people who want to design or play 2D Sims. It has a direct effect on how well you do in your combat phases. The more you do well in combat phases, the more materials you can bring back, and it goes into a cycle, with these two phases contributing to each other's growth. It adds cohesiveness to the experience despite being two very different gameplay mechanics. Nevergrave has a very endearing art style that's easy on the eyes. We found the art style charming and the animation smooth. There's a healthy variety of enemy designs, and the game has a fairly subdued color palette, which adds to the calm atmosphere that the game provides. The audio, however, is a bit of a weak point. Much like some of the aspects of the combat, it is there, but it doesn't really stand out. I wish that there were more memorable tracks. It also feels a little empty when the characters don't really speak. Even the gibberish you'd hear from NPCs in games like Hollow Knight would have sufficed to give more character to the world. So that was Nevergrave. While it has a lot of unique ideas, it also has a lot of equally lackluster aspects. The possession mechanic and the base building portions were a breath of fresh air, but the Metroidvania and roguelike aspects were just okay. The story is okay, the art was charming, the audio was okay. It nails a lot of basics and can be an enjoyable experience. However, value-wise, at about 17 USD, it's hard to complain really. You get a solid game if lacking in wow factor, and that's why we're giving Nevergrave a 78. Those were our thoughts on Nevergrave, but tell us what you think of it. Is this something you're looking to play, or are you looking for something that's a little more flashy? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching, like if you like, subscribe for more video game reviews and other video game related content. This has been Game8, and we'll see you next time.